is er, which has really no meaning, but like can make you think of error or to wander around, to stray, something like that. And this issue we were preparing centers around a word, a signifier, which is prima, which in Italian means like before or earlier, or like, so it has a temporal meaning, but it could also prima.
Prima means
before.
Before.
Free and lost. Soul to soul, back to reality.
We got it. The name came from a poem from a zine that Black Quantum Futurism made called Non-Locality. I was speaking with Kier, and Kier was saying something, and then we were like, oh, that's cool, let's use that. And it was Irreversible Entanglements, and what I was doing in the zine was I was taking these physics terms and writing my own definition for them. But this entanglement is not born in physics, right? So this is where you come in speaking about before. And it was just fitting because all the things that we come, all of our journeys, are now entangled with each other. I've even saw this even more by watching everyone's solo performance. Like when we come together, oh my fuck. That's what I was thinking the night before. You know, so I think that it's been a really great movie or picture that we can really see how this entanglement works, you know. Anyone else?
Many years ago, I was a student in the Netherlands. I started to study in a department called the Interfaculty of Image and Sound, which was set up by these experimental sort of art philosophers interested in synesthesia. And so all of the students that were accepted had to be working in multiple disciplines, using multiple senses. And the year that I got accepted, they changed the name suddenly to art science, and without consulting the students. And many of us were upset because I don't consider myself a scientist. And science has a bearing on the way my instrument works, or the way that sound works, or the way that color works. But for me as an artist, science is like can be an inspiration or a metaphor, but it's not a specific thing.
Okay. So in fact, I very nearly failed the physics of sound in my undergrad years. So you know, but it's a delightful phrase, and as you know, as a person who's interested in poetry and language in a poetic sense, it had this like thing that I was interested when I heard this reading by Black Quantum Futurism. I was like interested, like, what is this? Like, let's pull this into what we're doing, you know. That's where I relate to it.
Yeah, science.
If you want to add something, because I was thinking, for example, Grandmaster Flash, he considered himself a scientist when he invented his whole art, his whole craftsmanship, you know. And so I think,
I mean, science is a way of explaining the world in the same way that playing music is a way of explaining the world. So music is another subset of science, perhaps, or especially in the way that we approach it, perhaps is another subset of a scientific methodological study, observation, theory, hypothesis. You know, the methodologies of coming together, of mixing this and that, and then you get different particles, different elements, It's like we're cooking. We're getting into the petri dish and the test tube. I'm just saying everything scientific that I can think of right now. We look at our periodic tables and we get our stoichiometric equations together, and it hits like a nuclear weapon.
It's cool.
Of love? A nuclear weapon of love?
Something like that.
Yeah, more.
Is love scientific?
What about time? Like, do you think there's the reference to physics gives you something, like gives you some new means to approach the question of time? I know that for you this is important, like in the way.
It's not a new means, okay? Using quantum physics just to make something viable in the minds of the world, because we all listen to this idea of a scientist, okay? So what we're doing is we're taking our ancient rituals, the things that we have done forever, making a correlation with quantum physics. So then the person in the institution is like, oh, this was proven by some scientists. Maybe these Africans, maybe these indigenous people were actually onto something. They don't look at what's been left behind. They don't look at the architectural evidence. They look at whatever the scientist says. So this is a way to make it more layman's terms to people, to show people that it's just not some fluff or something in an imagination, that is something real,
That's cool.
I think like sometimes that I think it's cool to think in terms of physics, in terms of this word like accelerated frames of reference. So you have this kind of you are in a bus and the bus brakes and you're like whoa, or the bus accelerates and you're like whoa, and so when you're in in the audience sometimes and the musicians, the artists create something like that, then it's for me like the best thing that could happen. But if it moves me, like my body or my mind in a way, so.
Because the main thing was that science in a way is also a practice.
No more! No más! No more! No más! No more!
So the next
Enough! We've had enough!
I would say
Manifesto for sound!
it's real to think about practice too. Art and politics. You know that we come from
We've had enough!
response to
Enough! Manifesto for sound!
ethnically involved into. But like we were saying, how you conceive your relationship to politics, because I think long time
We've
was
had
a
enough!
relationship.
Manifesto for sound!
Music was about sending a message. Then there was this like period of possibility where we thought that politics and art had nothing to do.
We've had enough!
Now this is related.
Enough!
Way. So
Enough!
how do you live your relationship to politics in music?
No more the nonsense, no more the bullshit, no more the
It's not so much about that we're getting into politics, some people avoid it in their music, and some people it's their life, It's like whatever you do is going to be political because of your standing in society, of the things that you're not supposed to do, So for most of us, this is our lives. These are the things that we're seeing in our community that we have agency to say something about. Sometimes you feel like the machine or the institution is so big you don't have a voice. And most people live in this way. They don't have a voice to make any changes in society. They believe that, so they just want to find other ways, like dancing, You know, the joy of dancing. Maybe they want to focus on some type of escape or some sort of healing. You know, and that's also a political act. You know, so really it's about whose politics. You know, but according to the world, the people who are the politicians, those are the people that are interested in politics. You know, yeah, so to care about someone is very political in this time. But there's a lot of people caring. There's a lot of love out there. By no means are we selling a myth that everything is horrible in the world. I don't know if that answers your question. Anyone? Did that hit on, or did I miss something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that what I would add is, I mean, we come from the U.S. Kamei, me, and Luke, and Achilles lives in the States half time. Sometimes lives in Panama. Lucas is sitting in with us. He's in Austria, but Irreversible Entanglements is a U.S. band, and the U.S. is so fucking racist that white musicians who make the most apolitical music in the U.S., that's the most political music.
Yeah.
Right? Because we could go on stage and Kamei could say something about like the flowers blooming, and somebody's gonna look at that and be like, that's so political, because we're still dealing in the States with the idea that for Kamei, as a black woman, to say something out loud and to have a platform for it, that's political.
Yeah.
Which is like what, like definitionally structural racism, right? So, and it's fucked up. Like, and I'm saying that on behalf of the other people in my band, in the sense that you, in a certain situation, you can't make a move without having somebody observe you as a political being. And everybody's a political being, right? Like in a sense, but in a sense where this is sort of this has been a rallying cry at certain times, but existence is resistance for some people, right? But it's also like sometimes you just don't want to have every aspect of your life distilled to resistance, and you actually want to just enjoy the act of making sound with your friends, right? And that's in a way there are structures that try to prohibit that, and I think the beautiful thing is where the musicians in this group can stop feeling that pressure and that white gaze, right? I mean, I'm saying that, from my perspective, but I think that I want to make political music. I want to use my music and my platform to engage the shit that's going on. But on the other hand, I recognize that, number one, that can feel different at different times, and number two, I don't want to have to do that because that's the thing that I do as an artist, and but there's like a pressure, right?
So we could say that there's something inherently political in the way you conceive your way of coming together and playing together. In the sense that maybe improvisation.
We play what moves us. Okay? So some people would say because I never wrote a song about Donald Trump that I'm not political. Right?
Yeah.
I write about what moves me. We play what moves us. You hear Achilles playing his songs on YouTube. You heard it. You were dancing to it. That's what moves us. And you're going to hear it all the time. We're not singing it. We're playing it. They're doing their bumps all the time. We're moved by things. That's what it's about. And you hope what moves you has a bit of sensitivity, a bit of compassion, you know, inclusive, honoring what you feel, you know.
Lady Day, sing the song. Let them know. Let them know. Let them know. Sing the song and let them know that it was beautiful. Sing the song. 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 The song. Pass down. Pass down. 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 Sing the song.
Yeah, it's organic. It's organically political in the sense that we're all doing things that some people say we ought not to do, and we're doing things with our instruments and with our histories of just coming together. This band might not ought to exist, according to a lot of people, or according to some people. We might not ought to exist as musicians. We might not ought to be here right now, as some people might say. The fact that we're, you know, having the opportunity to travel during this time and to be invited to travel during this time. You know, some people might think that that's crazy, or they might ask questions about safety, or, you know, they might have questions about how is it that a 5-piece improvisational jazz band is able to do all these shows, and to be invited to do all these shows outside of the normal aesthetics of what people normally perceive of as viable music. Our music is vital music. It's not just viable. That's why we're here.
I'm quoting that on Twitter. Sorry. So I have to at you.
Yeah. And we're speaking a language that folks can understand, whether it be scientific. It doesn't have to be scientific in order for you to understand it, in order for you to feel it. Science is another, you know, it's another barrier of language, perhaps, when there's another way of explaining the world and communicating and existing in the world that is based on feeling, that includes numbers, that includes measurement, that includes the traditional scientific method, per se, includes the political method, includes the rhetorical aspects of communicating emotions and feelings. But there are other ways of existing, and this is what we try to mine. We try to exemplify other ways of being and existing as politically scientific musicians.
One thing I would say is that we lift each other up. We expand what our roles are in the band. That's when I say we lift each other up. So as I walk into this band as a so-called poet, Achilles is telling me that I'm a horn player. You know, when we walk on the stage with Luke's just not a bass player. He's a badass motherfucker. You get me? These are ways that we're lifting each other up. You know what I mean? Same thing with Kier, same thing with Cheshire, same thing as we're collaborating with Lucas on this trip. You know, we make sure that everyone has that room. Okay, whether we start out with a duo, whether we start out with a trio, however we start, we lift each other up, you know? So that's a very important part of our process, you know? Yeah, I just would say that.
Yeah, that's cool. Thank you.
Don't get your dog